Welcome to the Lore Ladies, two bookish besties talking all things nerdy and entertainment. We are your hosts, Laura and Lauren, known collectively as the Lores.
Hey you guys, today is another special episode of the Lore Ladies. I am Laura,
I'm Lauren.
and we are going to be talking about our brand new book, the Zenith Decoy, now available on Amazon and Amazon Kindle, Amazon Unlimited, Amazon. So Amazon. Yeah, we're really excited. We've been working on this book for over a year now. Funny story, we started out trying to just write a novella like we did before on our last books, Not So Silent Nights, and it turned into much more. So obviously we were having a lot of fun. So I would love to ask Lauren, what did you like about this book? What was fun?
There were a lot of things that was fun about it. We had a lot of meetings, a lot more meetings than we did for Not So Silent Nights. A lot of, you know, planning and ideas and idea generation in different ways. Like we used some AI art, which was really fun to come up with ideas and just check-ins more often to see, okay, how are we feeling about our direction? But yeah, I did think it was so interesting, the genesis of it and how it unfolded into a longer story. And we just started to realize, well, this has definitely grown into more than what we intended, and we just went with it and just kept at it, kept working on it. What
Yeah, I
about
know
you?
I know we actually outlined this book. And I'm curious, I have not gone back to look at the outline to see how close we actually stayed to it, but we were outlining it, and at the time we're like, oh yeah, we could totally do this in 30,000 words. Like, yeah, it's fine. And like looking back, I'm like, oh yeah, we outlined a full book. That was multiple, like the story arc and sub characters. So um, I am not surprised, but I have to say, it sounds cheesy. My favorite thing is always writing with you. It's so much fun. I feel like our writing styles are similar but different. So hopefully readers feel like it's cohesive, but maybe you can guess who wrote which chapters, which is how we handled it. I would write a full chapter, Lauren would write a full chapter, and we'd kind of mostly do every other. There might be a couple there where like we doubled up if someone else was really busy and didn't have time to do another chapter. Um, but yeah, it was really fun. It was fun flexing in a new genre as well. I know. What was it like for you writing more of like a space opera fantasy versus a fae fantasy?
It was really fun. In part because, well, we're both huge Star Trek fans.
Hmm.
I love space adventure, but I hadn't written anything like that yet. And it was really exciting, but also it was a little bit, I don't want to say daunting, but I wanted to do it. I didn't want to do a disservice to something that I loved so much. I wanted to make sure that when we wrote something that included maybe a little bit of technology, so I would say we were pretty light on that. It was not
Yeah.
heavy into actual science or theoretical science, anything like that. But anytime we included something, I wanted to stay true to form.
Hmm.
And so that was really important to me anytime we kind of delved down that road. And usually it would only be a couple of sentences, something in addition to a paragraph. But yeah, it was really fun. It was fun thinking about different worlds. I guess that was the big difference is that usually what I'm writing is contained to one world,
Hmm.
and this is space travel. There's different places, different locations, not too many, but that was definitely a new experience.
I'd say space is the ultimate location. It is everywhere.
It's everywhere.
Um, I have to say that my surprise favorite character of this book is Captain Bacon. Uh, uh, no spoilers, but it started out as a joke, this idea of this Captain, I don't even know where the name Bacon came from, but it came from like bacon, like the food product. And then we like flipped the name around and he became my most favorite character because he has a personality and just like, I don't know, such a joy to write. And of course, there's a scene where he's actually, I think he's grilling meat and it just felt so right.
Right. Yes. Oh
Yeah.
gosh. And something I really love about doing a podcast is that we get to do these little insider things that if you read the book and listen to the podcast, you know a little bit more. So when we started writing Bacon, his temporary name, I laughed so hard, was Jack Hole Spaceman.
That's right. Yeah, he was a
Jack Hole.
jackal.
Then when Jack Hole would start talking, I would just laugh. I'm like, I love this guy. This guy's my favorite.
Well, the beauty is you can write that and then just like replace all, and
Yeah.
the name is fixed. As long as we're consistently calling him a jackhole, we're good.
Exactly. Yeah, I really loved how the story evolved into more than being a romance,
Yeah,
because we both write with a romance thread, but this really wasn't, there is that, but it's a friendship book. And I think that's really probably the coolest part that unfolded for me is that this is what it turned into. And there's more than one friendship happening, which is really neat.
that's really true. Yeah, that's what, though there is a romance thread, I agree. I think that is probably my favorite part of this book is the friendship between the princess and her handmaid and or handmaid TBD, as you guys will find out. Exciting stuff in the book. But it was a lot of fun. I also feel like this story had a few more twists in it than at least I've written before, which was fun to plan and also fun to discover, I guess. So any, since Lauren has written a couple more books than me, any advice for people looking to add a twist to their books? I'm curious. That's why I'm asking.
That's a good question. I'd say stay open to the inspiration because I think that
Mm,
that happened a lot when we were writing this, of not making too many assumptions about who a character is.
yeah.
And I'm thinking of a particular character when I'm thinking of this is that because we kept an open mind, I'd say, as to what this character, what his purpose might be. And I think that what the end result was so much better because we were a bit open-minded with it, of like, ooh, what if he's this? And then just the tingles that I would get when we're like, oh yes, oh my gosh, that is so good. Because he wasn't set in stone as to who he was going to be. He was definitely there and he played an integral part. So that really helped to add some twists because I think that that was something, that was a certain part that we didn't even see coming. There were some twists that we knew in advance
Hmm.
and then some twists that we didn't, that we discovered as we were writing and staying open to that. So like we outlined, right, which was helpful, but then staying loose within that to be able to let the story unfold and be what it was going to be. Because there were things that we thought were going to be included that weren't.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about that.
Oh man. I guess I don't even remember what we wanted to include anymore because I am so used to our book as it is. How many drafts ago? I do feel like that quite a bit. I wanted to include a technology aspect and like this like hyperspace and kind of this like more to do with the pirates. Me personally, like I would have loved to have written the pirates and the Aeon dynasty more into it and have more of like a political huge overlapping space opera angle. And I know for me, I love space operas, so being able to have added that. But I do feel like as we wrote the book, it turned less into like a giant political space opera into a friendship story. And like to really being able to focus on the relationships and, keep the readers close to that drama. Like I let some of that large scale political intrigue idea for myself, kind of fall away a bit as I was writing, and this idea of like space technology, kind of on a grander scale. Not to say that there isn't political intrigue, because there always is, but just not to the scope I was originally considering. Um, but yeah, it was really fun. Uh, as any listener would know if they listen to any of our other podcasts when we're talking about our books, is I love it when my characters tell me what's going to happen next in the story. And that means you're really, you're letting them improv themselves. And I think that's always a good sign. So you usually don't want to fight what your character wants to do, because things will not go well.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. Um, was there any particular part that was really fun for you to write?
The banter and probably the angsty bit of some of the romance I really liked. Like there's a little bit of a slow burn in the book, I would say. Well, yeah, I'd say it's more of a slow burn. And I really enjoy. I'm a big fan of Korean dramas, which has a lot of like rack focus cameras and clenched fists and like longing gazes. And even though this wasn't primarily a romance, I could put that in there a little bit and like sprinkle it through to like put that tension between characters, and I really enjoyed that, of just kind of trying to add those Easter eggs so that there's a bigger payoff later for these relationships. How about you?
Yeah, I think one of the most fun, okay, this is kind of funny, but one of the most fun things was, so we have a lot of trust, you and I, as
Yeah.
friends, as writers. There's a level of trust where I know that you're not going to take some left turn and it's suddenly aliens. And this is sci-fi, so it could have totally done that, like,
Mhm.
you know. But there's a level of trust. But there's one time where I pushed it a little bit and it was really fun, where it was like time for me to hand it off to you, and I pushed somebody off a cliff.
Mhm.
I'm like, hot potato, here you go. It's now your turn to like figure out like, oh great, they're falling. What now? That was really fun. I got a kick out of that because I knew that you would pick that up and, in a really fun stride. But it was fun for me to like set all of that up and then see where it went. That was really one of the coolest things, was to see what happened on your side. And then as we move forward and kind of meshed everything together, what the final product was.
I feel like we did that a lot in this book, where you would try and set something up, or I would try and set something up, and the other person was like, "Nope, we're not doing that." But we'd try to make it very natural so it didn't feel like a left turn, but we kept like stopping ourselves from like going in different directions in a fun, playful way, so it kind of kept an energy in the whole story. I think that's one of the things I really enjoy about writing with you, is that like you inspire me and you push me to go different places with my writing.
Yeah, there were definitely at least two times I could think of where I thought, oh, I set up something really, really funny. And then you very specifically are like, we're doing this. And I was like, okay, actually, I love it. Smart
Yeah,
move, smart move. It was a lot
yeah,
of fun.
I agree. Well, with all the fun, you know, writing a book over, a year plus a little bit, and then having jobs and having lives, like it's not all fun. So I'm really curious, like, if, what was difficult in this process for you?
Yeah, there were definitely times where life was really busy, where there was a lot of changes happening for me personally and difficulties. And sometimes when it was back in my corner, back, your chapter is done and it's now back in my lap, and it's like I've got all this stuff going on and having to push through. And of course, there was always the ability to say, oh, I've got to wait a little bit. It wasn't like it was high pressure or something, but
Mhm.
it was my own self-imposed pressure of I've really got to get this done. sometimes that was really hard for me to mentally push past because I could find the time. Even with being really busy, I could still find the time. But it was finding the mental energy. That's hard. And I think that anybody could deal with that. Like there's a lot of things that happen in daily life and a lot of things you got to do. So finding that extra oomph to be like, all right, I'm going to get really creative right now and I'm going to write something really fun, especially when things may not be easy in daily life. And,
Right.
whatever's going on, it's sometimes hard to step away from that. But I always found that when I was able to, when I would do that, I would feel so great afterwards. I would feel so like it, enlivened, like I did it. Like this, I'm really happy with it, how this chapter turned out, and it just feels like it has so much life to it. How about you?
Yeah, it was a big year for me too. I moved to different states and started kind of a new job in a parallel industry. So very much the same. There was a lot that I think we both went through this past year, and on the plus side, we always had the book. It was something to come back to even when it was stressful, but very much the same of like, I am so grateful to have you as a writing partner because you gave me so much grace when, we kind of had an imposed rough timeline for us that we would have a weekly turnaround, right? So like I would write my chapter and kind of like self-edit it a little bit, and then after that week, I would hand it off to you and you do your chapter. Just for the listeners, but obviously, shit happens. And you would always, like, without complaint, be like, oh, yeah, take more time. Like, it's fine. This was something that we did for ourselves and for no one else, which is a rare thing nowadays to be able to do that and just write it from a place of joy and passion. Um, but I would say that was really difficult. And then the other thing that was hard is I am not good with endings in books. So I love you get me up to the midpoint, and after the midpoint of my books, I tend to struggle. So for me, that's always kind of a point that gets hard of like how to stop the story and kind of come to a conclusion. And I think that comes from me being kind of a Dungeons and Dragons nerd. Like the story's never over in D&D. You just keep playing. And it keeps going. And so it's been really good practice now to have, this and Not So Silent Nights kind of under the belt of like getting there and feeling satisfied with the ending. And this definitely is a standalone, I think. Like we could probably write another, but I personally don't have any driving need to write another. Maybe a novella in the future.
Famous last words. Another novella for this one, and then turns into yet another novel. But we did write it as a standalone, and
Yeah.
although I love how it ends, and not no spoilers, but that you feel like they continue on with their
Mhm.
lives. Like that's one of my favorites, and you can actually picture they're going off and doing something else related or different or something like that, but where there's a continuation, but you don't have to be there to read everything about it.
Mhm. It's good when when the characters are alive enough that you can, on your own, without the authors telling you, consider what their futures might be. I feel like that's a success. Like, no book is perfect, but if you're able to tell your own story for the characters past the ending, I think it's a win. Win for me. 5 stars, folks. Five stars.
One thing that was interesting also is that when the book was in your court again, and I would, because we shared a Google Doc, so you can always see live updates, or if you need to write offline or something and then update later, it's really handy. We're not like promoting Google or anything, but
Mhm.
that's just how we were working. But sometimes I would log in and I would see you writing. Like I'd see words update and I go, oh gosh, and I shut down because it's
Mhm.
like I felt like, oh my gosh, this is her time to be writing, and I so then I'd like close down the window. I always found that really funny because I don't know. It's like your moment to have your chapter and work through whatever the characters were going to do. And then we could hash it out later and, figure out what direction to go next or just kind of ad lib what was going to happen depending. Um, One thing I found really interesting was so I read it after the fact, after we were done with it, and sometimes I couldn't tell which chapters were mine and which were yours.
Yep, me too.
And I couldn't remember too, like not just that I couldn't tell between the voices, but I actually could. I'm like, did I read this one? I don't remember. The book was long enough to have that kind of experience, I think. I think with the novella, when we wrote Not So Silent Nights, and we wrote the third novella together, and we did the same thing where we alternated chapters. That one was, I think we ended on 12 chapters for that, 12 or 14, something like that. So it was easier to keep track of, oh, well, this is an odd chapter, so it's Laura's or even as mine. It's like numerically, it was easier to know. But with this one, the length of it and just how we kept editing and kept working on it, at a certain point, I couldn't tell the difference.
Yeah,
Found that very interesting.
yeah. Super weird. It just like how that can happen. Like I do feel like we have different styles and different voice. Like my characters, like my writing style, if people read this, like if there's a lot of like internal dialogue, that's probably me. I think I like the internal dialogue a lot of characters thinking and like you getting them thinking, and like pondering. Um, which I would say like so that's probably my writing. Not all the time, but it could be like more than likely maybe that's me. And I feel like your writing style was really focused on like action. Like your character in your chapters things happened. So that's probably, every time you set up like this really cool thing to happen, my chapter would come along and the character would think about it and be like, maybe something else should happen. So maybe that's like, I'm curious if that's true or not, but I feel like that's, in my opinion, kind of how the styles went. But I don't know,
Yeah,
maybe not.
I think that's an accurate read.
Um, I would love to know, Lauren, if you feel an affinity for one of the leads or the other, if you feel more towards Chandra or more towards Jaina.
That's a good question. Um, I think I feel more towards, geez, I think I flip-flopped throughout the
Okay.
book. I definitely flip-flopped. At first, I would say that I felt more towards Chandra, and then towards probably the midpoint, I started to feel more for Jaina. So it maybe has something to do with their character arcs and how they changed over
Hmm.
time. And that kind of segues into character arcs and how happy I was that pretty much all of the characters had an arc.
They did.
We even
Trying to.
had some minor characters that got to come back and have a bit of an arc, like a very subtle one.
Yeah, I feel like this story had maybe more minor characters than what I'm used to writing, with a lot of little subplots and the cast was rather large. So it's really kind of fun that most of them had an arc. I can probably think of only maybe one or two that didn't, who like had such a strong personality the whole time, like that was it. And like they were kind of more of an anchor for the other characters. But I don't know, I think we did a good job. I think, yeah, they all got some sort of payoff, which is exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, the larger cast was definitely something that was new for me. And then I think that was a challenge for the end
Yeah,
because it felt then like, well, we've made an effort to shine a light on them earlier on. We have to then include it a little bit, at least what happens, or not to tie up every single little, storyline with the bow. I don't think that that's necessary in most books, but at least in some point they do come back so they don't just like drop off and disappear altogether. So I
Hmm.
think that made a greater challenge for later on down the book,
Yeah.
down the line, I should say.
Yeah, I agree. I know there was definitely one character who, like, in the beginning was a little antagonistic, and then adventure happened, and the characters go off and do things, and then they come back, and that character kind of got forgotten. And I'm like, at the end, I'm like, oh, we should, like, have that character come back so we can show them how wrong they were. So I think it's fun to have the opportunity to do that, but it's definitely something to track. I feel like in the future I would like to find some different method for maybe tracking characters that have relationships that I want to loop back around later. I think so much of that comes from me being a pantser versus an outliner that like I make up who I need in the moment and then they're dead to me. So don't need them no more. Unless I actually kill them, which you never know.
You never know.
Mm.
You never know. It's always possible.
It is.
One thing also, just this is regarding the hard copies. I love how the cover turned out. It's so dang awesome.
Mm.
The cover and the formatting is really fun too. So I'm just gonna give a little sneak peek. Where's the chapter?
Lauren did all this formatting.
Oh,
Props to Lauren. Oh, you can't see the book, the writing, but you
no,
can see your
you're
beautiful
right. There
chapter
we go.
headings. There's words in it, we promise.
There's words. A lot of words. All the best words.
Oh,
Yeah, the chapter headings and like even the scene breaks. And the back of the book, look at how beautiful that is.
ooh, so
Can't you
glossy.
just picture this on your bookshelf?
And your friend's shelf.
Yeah.
Not just yours. Everyone you know should have a beautiful spine that says Zenith Decoy.
It was
Um,
such a fun process. It was incredible to work through it on a longer a longer timeline because with the novella set, it was a much shorter timeline. Every story was a quicker turnaround. We were able to get through it pretty fast, and then I don't even remember how long that took us.
I feel like I'm pretty sure I did my Frostbite novella for NaNoWriMo, so like in 1 month with some edits afterwards. And then I think we wrote our co-novella over the course of like 2 months and like one long weekend,
Yeah,
and like a retreat where we just like jammed out the ending. It was great.
that's
Um,
really cool.
yeah, I think it was pretty fast.
Yeah, and then with editing and all of that, I think total it was probably around 6 months,
Hmm.
maybe seven. So a much faster turnaround. I mean, twice as fast. And in total, really, it's about the same length because that was three novellas. It equals, I mean, the books are about the same thickness,
Hmm.
really. So we spent a lot more time story building and tying back through, making sure, if we've started something that we carry something through. And
Yeah.
yeah, it was a really, really fun process. So I can't wait for people to read it. And people are already reading it. It's
What?
awesome. Yeah,
People
the
are
book
buying the
is,
book.
people are buying the book, people are reading the book on
Yeah.
ebook. So it's very cool to hear the feedback already. The
Oh,
book is just
yay.
over a week old and it's already gotten quite a few reads. So that's exciting.
It's a baby book.
It's a baby book and it's not in the void of space. People are reading it.
Hey. Um, with that in mind, and we wrote this book, I'm just curious, what's on the horizon? What's next? Do we have anything to talk about?
Oh my gosh. Is this one of those podcasts where we come up with another crazy idea and then we do the thing? Because our
We-
first novella set is exactly how that came about.
It's true.
We did our holiday special and then we were like, we could write this. And then we wrote it.
We did.
And
No one
then
says we don't do what we say we're gonna do.
I know, right? What the
Yeah,
heck?
getting stuff done.
Pat on the back. Yeah, so what is next?
Well, for the Zenith decoy, I'm curious if people, well, obviously people are gonna love it, like no question there, but if people like reading it, would they like to listen to it? I know that Lauren has an audiobook version of her very great fantasy romance story, Veilborn. Maybe Maybe we can do an audiobook. Who
Audiobooks are
knows?
always great. And there's a
Yeah.
lot of people that read their books
Hmm.
by audiobook. You know,
Yeah.
they just don't have the time to sit down and read words on a page, or they just prefer audiobooks. So, yeah, definitely, I think it would make a great audiobook. Okay, that's plan. Let's do an audiobook for Zenith
Audiobook.
Decoy.
And then I am working, I took a little break as we were finishing Zenith Decoy, but I am working on a new novel. My temporary name for it is called Detective Christie, but it is essentially urban urban supernatural fantasy where this teenager's best friend goes missing, set in the Pacific Northwest, which is where I live now, which is very exciting and very different from LA. And yeah, it's got a little hint of uh, hot bad boys and a little bit of like a Greek god kind of vibe happening. So that sounds like a lot. You may be like, that sounds crazy, Laura. It's gonna be great. So it's gonna be a while though. How about you, Lauren?
Um, yeah, I'm definitely. So I also have a project that I'm going to pick back up on now. It's the last book in my Veilborn series. The
Ba, ba,
last
ba,
book in
ba.
this story arc, I should asterisk, because the MC, her story is coming to a close. So this is the last book for that. And I have a fair amount written. I've got about 30,000 words done. And pause. Thank you very much. I was received a note from my everybody. I received a note from my producer.
Talk
Talk
about.
about not so silent nights. Thank you. That's my
We should
producer,
put that on
Donovan.
our Insta.
Yeah, I'm gonna post this. All right, so we're including this in the podcast from my producer Donovan. Talk about not so silent nights. Definitely. Um, we had an awesome time writing that, and it is available for purchase on Amazon, Kindle Unlimited. Looks beautiful. You know what? Hold, please.
Oh, I wonder what's gonna happen. Fast forward to Christmas, or what?
That's so shiny. There we go. It's just so beautiful.
So lacquered.
So yes, once again, all the best words.
They're in there.
They're in there. Beautiful book. A million pages. Thank you, producer Donovan. Uh, paranormal romance themed novella set around the holidays. So people are actually still reading it, even though it's holiday themed, which I find fun.
It can be holiday year round, you know? Nothing like a good old Christmas in July, you
Exactly.
know, elves, Santa's elves for Halloween. Like, you can have it any time of year.
I agree. I'm all for Christmas in July, every month of the year. But
Yeah.
yeah, definitely holiday times, this thing is flying off the shelf. It's lots of fun to read.
Mhm.
Um, but going back to, yeah, so my last book in the Veilborn series is, it's emotional to write because I'm finishing up a story that was my start
Right.
in officially putting my words out in the world, and that was a scary thing for me. But then the whole how it all came about and how it's now how it was and where it's going, all of that, it's been quite a journey. So it's really exciting to see it coming to a close. In some ways, I'm a little bit relieved to have her story finish. And the last book has taken a turn which I did not expect.
Oh.
So that's always fun, just like we were talking about earlier with
Hmm.
the unexpected twists. It's always fun when that happens. And when we discover those as the writer and just kind of not force the character, and let the story happen. And then figure out the problems later. Because, of course, anytime that happens, it's always like, well, wait a minute. You were supposed to do this, and now this has happened. So we've got to fix X, Y, or Z.
Hmm. How do you get them back on course?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's so awesome. I can't wait to read your book and hear more about it as it gets closer to being finished. I know when we went to it wasn't LA Comic Con. What was it that we went to together?
Comment. I'll have
WonderCon.
to put some pictures right up here.
What?
Um,
What? Picture, picture, picture.
we had so much fun. That was really cool. We had a great weekend of talking to fans and meeting people, and it was great.
Yeah, you had so many fans and people who love your books, and I am so excited for you to finish your first full storyline. Well, they're all stories. You know what I mean. Your first arc of your characters. So, yay!
Yeah, and I can't wait to read Detective Christie.
Oh,
So far, usually I get to read a bit of what Laura's working on, but so far, mm-mm,
mm-mm.
not yet.
I'm Lauren is going to be my first beta reader or pre-beta alpha reader, whatever, completely from scratch. I'm not going to have her read any of my work in progress, and no one this time is going to read my work in progress. So I am excited to hold this one a little closer to my chest and like try and make the little perfect flower bloom.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I can't
Yeah.
wait. I
Yeah.
look forward. That'll be fun.
Awesome.
And definitely different from the experience that I forced upon you with every terrible draft of mine.
It was always enjoyable. Yeah. Though not promising anything for people listening, but I am very excited for when we get to write another story together. So I'm sure we will because it's so much fun.
It definitely is. I think it comes through in our book as well. Just
Yeah.
you can feel it. And I said this in my last newsletter that the book is a testament to friendship and trust. And I think that that was very evident when we were writing it,
Yeah.
that it took a lot of trust. And with everything that we were dealing with,
Hmm.
and still to be able to, all right, I'm gonna let go of everything that's happening in this moment and write this chapter and push through to be on the other side of that and have it release and out in the world
In
is
print.
so, it's an incredible feeling.
Yeah. This is to anyone who wants to write a story, who maybe doesn't feel like the fact that they're independent or that they don't have an editor or they don't have fans, like just write it and put it out there. And, having it in print makes it all worthwhile, in my
It does.
opinion.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that everybody has a story to tell and
Yeah.
to not discount yourself, to think that, oh, maybe it's I just need to keep working on it and definitely taking the time to work on something is
Yeah.
good. This took us a long time to do. It took diligence and hard work and time, but you have
And
the story within you and you can put it out there.
and like 14 months or however long, still like some people have been working on books for like 10 years and like you're never too late. Like take what it takes, put it out there, but just don't give up.
I agree. A positive note to end on.
Yay.
Laura, it's always so awesome talking to you, writing with you. You're the best.
You too, Lauren. Yay, lore ladies.
Yay, Laura ladies. And thank you everybody for listening and for following us on this journey. We're so excited to share our book with you.
Yeah. Please read and support. Leave reviews. Good reviews. Thanks, guys. Bye.